What's up, folks? Well, I'm not Navy. I work for the Department of the Navy, but I'm not active duty Navy anymore. What were people saying in the chat? Were you say that made you say give them a break? What's up, guys? What's up? What's up? Yeah, it's been a minute. I don't really do videos like that anymore. You guys know that, man. Look, all right. I'm not. I'm not on here for. I can't say I don't want people to watch, right? I mean, shit, I wouldn't be doing the videos if I didn't want people to come and tune in and interact with me and kick it. But what I will say is, I'm not doing it for the money, right? When I started doing content initially, um, I was um, I felt there was an emergent need to kind of let people know how important the implementation of a new monetary system was, the attack on Ripple and XRP. And I knew that the FUD campaign was going to be out in full force and that people were going to, screw themselves out of their positions prematurely. So I was doing 2 to 3 videos a day. And I did it from a technological perspective because that's what I know. That's the field I'm in. And I did those videos like that to show people ultimately not just utility equals price, but more importantly, utility can create a catalyst for demand, right? And we're going to talk about that in today's video. We're going to talk about a few things. We're also going to talk about Gary Gensler, all right? I'm going to offer a disclaimer before I do this video, and it's an important disclaimer because it's a very sensitive subject. We'll be talking about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Really, truth be told, Israel and not only Hamas, but the innocent women and children, toddlers and infants in Gaza, or what's now called Palestine. All right. And we're also going to be touching on not necessarily Zionism, but we're going to touch on those who may fall into a certain, I guess now it's classified as an ethnic sect of Ashkenazi or Khazar type Jews, who essentially sit at the top of the central banking infrastructure, and who are also lobbyists who contribute to that infrastructure as well. Me going down the rabbit hole on that type of a discussion is not disrespect to anyone who is of Ashkenazi or Cohen lineage or Khazar lineage, Sephardic Jews, etc. This is simply talking about those who hide behind a religion to create statehood and power based ecosystems and consortiums within the Middle East to rape it and Africa for its natural resources in an attempt to establish dominance. That's the bottom line. All right. There are plenty of Jewish brothers and sisters out there, whether they're Cohen, whether they're Sephardic, whether they're Ashkenazi, etc., who are great people. All right. Your average citizen who isn't engaged in the genocide or the hatred, ethnicity wise, against the native inhabitants of that region have nothing to do with this conversation or where we're going to take it to. But there's a reason we're going to go down that path because this also ties into Ukraine as well and the Russia conflict where crypto was at the epicenter, and Hamas in Israel where crypto was at the epicenter as well. With that being said, what's taking so long with XRP, right, guys? We were all hypothetically supposed to be rich already. So I know everyone is, chomping at the bit. Everyone's anxious. Everyone's saying XRP has legal clarity. It hasn't gone up in price, etc. People are selling out. People who you saw that were enthusiastic, who were doing content for free, whether it be on Twitter or whether it be in Discords or YouTube, have now turned a sour eye to the asset, and there are attacks being aimed directly at Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple and Co., David Schwartz, etc. Right? This is an interesting time, right? And I'll tell you what I've noticed that's even more interesting is that none of the utility-based assets are doing well right now in terms of significant price appreciation from where they're sitting at currently. Okay, you guys need to understand that. All right, out there who are getting impatient about it, I get it. I'm human just like everyone else. You guys, know I've been transparent. I've spent I don't know how many thousands of dollars on just the craziest stuff that's happened over the past probably 2.5 years, right? So don't think just because I'm on here conveying information to you and I'm hypothetically invested that I haven't gone through trials and tribulations as well. I absolutely have. And stuff is not easy. Going through stuff right now as well, right? But I'm a soldier. I'll get through it. That's just how God built me. But with that being said, I'm blessed to have the career that I have. I'm blessed to have, some of the family that I have and the support system I have and my friends. So I'll be fine. I'll be just fine. And all of you will be fine too, whether you believe that or not. But here's the thing you have to understand with all of this. All right. I think the first thing that we need to examine here when we start talking about the impatience regarding not just XRP, but Quant. Quant had a big run up and then it's kind of been consolidating in between, anywhere from $87 all the way to about 130 something dollars, maybe a little bit higher occasionally, right? But then it kind of, goes back down and it consolidates and sits there, right? XTC, same thing. It's not really doing much. HBAR, not really doing much. Algorand, no one's talking about Algo anymore, right? I could go down the list and name tokens outside of an XRP that are utility driven in their use case that aren't doing anything significant. Now, there's a reason behind that, okay? And I want people to grasp the concept here that all of us in the community, especially the communities I belong to, have been trying to convey for years. Legislation, regulations, classifications. No, let me rewind it, right? Lawsuit resolution. Jesus, man. Lawsuit resolution, legislation, regulations, and classification for digital assets, right? Now, some people will tell you that doesn't matter, right? The speculative market should be enough for XRP and all these other assets, to boom through the roof, okay? And in a perfect world, you would see the type of inflows that you see going into Bitcoin and Ethereum into utility-driven assets. But there's a problem here, all right? While there are some regulations regarding crypto and some laws regarding crypto, some of the most important ones regarding institutional acquisition, sales to institutions, etc., are still money, okay? Custody framework for institutions, I think something just got passed or is being handled right now and has already gone through the House and the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, regarding custody, right? There's so many other things that need to take place before you start seeing assets that are going to solve potentially certain problems for institutions significantly appreciating in price, right? Now, I know that this is kind of one of those points that's been driven home from probably every content creator, but it's usually done with cliches. Know what you hold, they want you out, hodl for dear life, etc. Right? We've heard them all. Okay, but the thing you have to understand here, you have to go back in time, and you have to listen to Gary Gensler's MIT conferences. Right? What's so funny about it is that before Gary Gensler took the SEC chair position, when he was giving that conference, this is a guy coming from a long background of banking lobbying and a career man at Goldman Sachs, all right? He knows exactly how to play the game. And aside from some of the good stuff he said about Ripple and XRP and other cryptocurrencies as well, what I find amazing in this space is that people didn't note what he said about what a company like Ripple would have to do to make it, okay, and why they would have a hard time making it. Now, before I get started, I'm going to ask everyone in the chat, do you remember what Gary Gensler said about Ripple specifically? Because I do, and I'm going to tell you what he said. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have an S24. S24 Ultra, to be exact. But yes, I did get a new phone. Yep, you guys are absolutely right. So you're going to have to pay the toll, essentially, is what Gary was saying. Now, what's crazy is he mentioned Ripple and XRP by name when he was making this statement. And he was talking about some of the solutions that could be solved. He didn't just name Ripple and XRP, right? But Ripple and XRP are the only ones that have a direct company associated with it in Ripple, right? Ethereum has the Ethereum Foundation, but that's a different thing versus what Ripple has. All right. Ripple is an actual company. And when he named Bitcoin, he named Ethereum, and then he said, or you have a company like Ripple, and this is what they do regarding cross-border payments and remittances. They even have their own currency. Now, here's the thing. He didn't name XRP. He basically, but we know what he's talking about because Ripple only has one currency, quote unquote, right? And that's none other than XRP. And so when he's saying this and he's like, yeah, they have their own currency that can, facilitate bridging and etc. And then he goes on and says, and you start looking at stuff like this and the correspondent system basically. And he's like, they wouldn't be terribly, thrilled about this, right? And he said that exactly. He said they're not, and he laughed, like they're not going to be terribly thrilled about this. He said, you may even see a situation where ownership is going to have to be relinquished, right? Maybe you see this ownership relinquished in the form of the native token associated with that company, right? I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you can go watch the video. I actually had XRP Shillionaire and MetaMan X on my Twitter post it because I asked if anyone had the snippets because I didn't want to go through all of it. And sure enough, they did, and they posted it right there on my Twitter feed, right? So it's a whole thread, and he's saying it, man. What he's basically getting at here is that something that disruptive, right? And I'm giving my perspective at this point, but I'm basically translating to you what Gary's saying. XRP is known to serve as a valuable Nostro account replacement per the 2016 testing with R3 member banks, right? It's something that disruptive to the current monetary system has to be controlled, right? Now, in a perfect world, it wouldn't, right? You would be able to see this benefit the entire world where we play in this utopian environment where folks don't have to, be slaves to a correspondent relationship with the big bank that's going to screw them over on fees and rape them essentially, right? Excuse my verbiage, YouTube, but it's true, right? That's banks, smaller banks do not benefit from those correspondent relationships, and it costs a lot, for them to facilitate those cross-border transactions and remittances, okay? So you have some token out of nowhere on a decentralized platform that can't be controlled because it's open source, that's essentially able to replace the current pre-funding account types out there in the form of Nostro Vostro and make it to where countries no longer have to be subservient to the US dollar as a world reserve currency and they can get around it, you're going to have some issues if you don't relinquish ownership of that token or the majority of the token, or at least half of it, to those top correspondent banks so that they can then take those tokens, become liquidity providers in some sort of an automated market maker setup. Sound familiar, right? And then start controlling those inflows and gaining the benefits off of the arbitrage and you know, taking their cut off at the top from those fees, right? If you don't allow them the opportunities to be able to do this and capitalize on that, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what I think happened, right? Per Gary Gensler's words. He basically said they're not going to be happy about it, and maybe they're going to have to come up off of those, off of ownership, you know, of whatever they're holding, maybe to the tune of 50% to the top 20 banks, right? I touched on this the other day. When I was talking with my pops, and I said, you know, or no, I don't know if it was him I was talking to about it. We talked about it, but I think I had this conversation with someone else, and I said, there's a banking insider. I don't know very many insiders in the banking field, right? I talk to, you know, a lot of devs and tech folks all the time. But in terms of the financiers, I know a small group of people, right? There's one that happens to be an insider, and I won't give his or her name, right? But I had a conversation with this individual, and they told me, so there's a publicized meeting that Brad Garlinghouse talked about where, you know, the 12 JPM executives showed up to our office. But allegedly, for entertainment purposes, this insider, who I cannot confirm does or does not exist, told me that there was a meeting prior to that. And, you know, I could be right, I could be wrong. He could be right, he could be wrong. But basically, the meeting kind of went like, hey, you have this token and, you know, you guys are facilitating this technology that can do such and such, and we want it. Like, there was no, I don't know if the nature of the conversation was friendly, but it was basically, we want a lot of that token, right? Now ask yourself this: what does Ripple indirectly hold in escrow through Polysign? What do they hold? They hold almost what? Half of the XRP in their supply, right? In the escrow. %? Is it 50% or is it a little bit less? I can't remember. You didn't miss anything important. He said, XR, so we're going to read this comment real quick. He said, main use case is dead. No XRP ODL in US. US banks can never use XRP ODL. That's not true. It's true for now. And it's not that they can't use it. It's that they're not using XRP currently to facilitate in the US. But that doesn't matter, man. Not right now, especially when most of their business is overseas anyways. So, and that could change like that. Just saying. I'm just looking at these comments. Mr. W said they're going to use it to save the treasury bonds. That's where Ripple stablecoin comes into play. Well, like I said, man, people don't look. Let me ask you something, and this is this is where common sense comes into play. All right, but a lot of people look. I hate to say it, but I have come to the conclusion, and this is one of the reasons why I don't do YouTube like that. And God forgive me, but a lot of people are stupid. They're just stupid, man. You know, and a lot of people out there who are invested in this space have no business in it in the first place. You don't even know what you're looking at. You have no clue what's going on. You have no clue how any of this stuff works. You're what I would consider an AMC or Reddit investor, right? Like, and that's okay if you don't know every single, intricacy of the tech, but man, some of you guys out there, I'm not saying anyone in here directly, but some of you guys are retarded, man, like for real. Like Ripple is still dealing with legal issues right now. We don't have stablecoin regulations. USD Tether is getting attacked left and right. And then Ripple, in the midst of probably one of the biggest legal battles known to man in the financial sector, comes out and announces they're launching a stablecoin. I don't know, maybe they just want to get themselves in more trouble, right? Jesus, man. Okay. Like I said, if you don't see the writing on the wall with the conflict that happened in Russia and Ukraine, Zelensky's role in it, the alleged rumors, I say alleged, about the billions of dollars in relief aid that was being sent from Congress over to Ukraine and then allegedly being funneled by Ukraine through the FTX exchange, and then profits essentially lining politicians' pockets, and crypto being at the epicenter of that conflict. And then, lo and behold, you got these jokers just paragliding into Israel with one of the probably best funded militaries that this world has ever seen, courtesy of the U.S. Just, literally just, we're coming in by, land, sea, plane, paragliding, the whole nine, and we're just going to kill a bunch of people. And there's no way Israel or the United States knew anything about it, and it just happened. And then we're going to go ahead and put USD Tether on the chopping block and say that, the whole reason this attack happened was because Hamas was able to use USD Tether and circumvent, this, that, and the third, and blah, 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 and bad stablecoin, you. And then Ripple just says, ta-da, like the tap dance man on that show, them. What you gonna do? And then they come out and freaking make a ta-da stablecoin right in the midst of this, and everyone's just like, oh, XRP is useless. Oh, the stablecoin's gonna negate XRP usage. Oh, they could just use the stablecoin and that could just bridge itself and blah, 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 blah. And they'll use the stablecoin to settle derivatives. What are you even talking about? What? Where'd you guys go to school at? Like, that's a serious question for some of you, right? Where'd you get your education from? Who raised some of you? Do you have any common sense? Do you know what you're looking at? No, you don't. And that's okay. And so you know what I'll say to those people? Sell. Get out. Sell. You have no bit. You have, if you can't look at all of this and then let me tell you something else, right? The way legislation is going right now regarding crypto, why do you think they're moving so fast? When have you ever seen anything like this be bipartisan in nature and pass the House and then go to the Senate and pass the Senate? What do you think is getting ready to happen in the not so distant future? During an election year? Are you kidding me? Really? No. So they just, folks, okay, like I said, B-Rush said, shh, don't say the bills. They don't know about that. They're stuck on the Ripple case. Yeah, the Discord has been on fire lately about all these laws getting ready to come into effect, haven't they? You guys have been on fire. I've been seeing it, and I'm not even going to go into detail about it. Go do your own research. Keep focusing on the damn Ripple case. and telling yourself it's never going to go anywhere and they're going to use a stable coin in place of that. You know, man, like, you know what I did too? You know what's so classic about all of this? I remember, and I'm not going to mention the name, and please don't mention the name in the comments, all right? Because I've put it behind me. She's put it behind her. I'm only mentioning this as a reference point because it ties into this. There was a certain individual, and we had a conversation about how there was a token on another network that wasn't going to have any utility because there were going to be stable coins launched, and that's what they were going to use for cross-border payments, right? And I had a long debate and did multiple videos and showed how a stable coin would actually do what? Complement a blockchain and its native asset, okay? So we were having these conversations years ago. And then everyone suddenly got amnesia and forgot all of those debates and conversations that I had years ago that you guys were a part of and privy to. And then Ripple announces, hey, we're going to start carrying a stable coin on our blockchain as well. And it's going to go on the Ethereum network. And everyone immediately just went crazy and said, this is the worst thing in the world. And this is why I don't do YouTube like that anymore. Look, I love you guys, but for that type of stuff, I don't have the patience for it, man. I just don't, man. I got too much stuff going on already. I don't have time. You know, if I were getting paid for it, that'd be a little bit different. Now, okay, I have an obligation to you, not just morally, but monetarily, because you're giving me your money. So now I'm going to help you out, all right? Even if I don't want to, because you're paying me. But you're not paying me, all right? And I'm not going to ask you to pay me, and I'm not going to monetize my channel, right? Because that's not why I do it. So I have, you know, in all honesty, just lost my patience with stupidity. Like, and I'm not saying like everyone's stupid, but there are stupid people out there, and they're louder than the ones who are not. And I'm tired of hearing it. So that's not my job, right? If you're a dumbass, you're going to have to lead yourself across the finish line or sell your assets. And then you'll just watch everyone else who understood what they were looking at and the larger implications come up. And then you'll just be stuck. And that'll be that. You know? That'll be that. Yes, we are in a gazebo. A stablecoin is simply a use case for XRP, not a replacement. See, but that's the thing, right? And that's another reason. Like I just don't have time for it, man. And you know what I did? I went on Twitter and I played retarded. Like I haven't already had these conversations I don't know how many times, right? David Schwartz, and I'll tell you something funny about David's a cunning fellow, right? David has been in and out of my spaces for a while, okay? And I know that because when he hops in, people, they notice him and then they call it out and then he jumps out immediately. And I always thought that was weird. I'm like, dude, I've seen him go in Mickle spaces. I've seen him go in Bet spaces. I've seen MetaMan X chopping it up with them. I'm like, why does he do that with my spaces? But he's willing to go up on stage and talk and do all this with everyone else. But whatever. Like, it wasn't a big deal. It was just noticeable, right? And it was noticeable that he would immediately exit the space if someone said he was in there. Now, what's funny about this is David doesn't follow me. I follow him, okay? I want to make that 100% transparent. But I made a post on Twitter regarding XRP, its use case, and I acted dumb, like I didn't know why, or basically how a stable coin on the XRP ledger would correlate with the XRP token, and acted like I was one of them, right? I'm not going to say any of you because I don't think any of you thought that. But I'll just say it. I was acting like one of the dumbasses out there that was like, oh, you know, this is a terrible thing. It's going to take over the XRP token and it'll be useless on its own native ledger and blah, 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 blah. So I basically kind of, in a smart-ass way, acted like that. Like, yeah, explain it to me like I'm a toddler because I'm a bit slow. David comes out of nowhere, not even freaking 10 minutes after I made the post, with an explanation on my post. You know what that tells me about you, David? If you're watching, you've been watching me. There's no way you don't follow me on Twitter and you immediately jumped on my post. And I appreciate it, right? I just want to say that first and foremost, if you tune in, thank you. Thank you for corroborating what I've been trying to say for years. Now, obviously, you knew it before I did. You're one of the godfathers of blockchain and DLT, right? So it's not like I knew it before you, but you know, I've run into this issue, I don't know how many times, where I say something, I'm a dumbass. I say something, oh, I'm T the tech guy, and I think I'm better than everyone. And I get all that kind of garbage, right? But when David comes on and corroborates it, well, there you have it, right? So if you follow me on Twitter, go look at what David's response was. And it was like the biggest, it was so funny, man. Like the Crypto Basic published an article with me in it, and they were like, concerned XRP community member is in turmoil about whether or not the XRP token is going to be overtaken by the Ripple USD peg stablecoin. I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Excuse my language. But I'm like, what? Like, okay, first of all, the Crypto Basic needs to just keep my name out of their mouths, because clearly you're not familiar with me and the content that I do and some of the stuff that I've already said about stablecoins increasing the efficiency regarding the ledger and being a complement to the token. All of you in here who have been following me for a long time have heard me say this, haven't you? And you know what else is so stupid about that, right? It was sad. I've always wanted to have dialogue on a technological basis with David. I've had it with some of his employees. I've had it with Neil. I've had it. Hey, I mean, you know, we've had these discussions, and it would be really cool to pick his brain. But it was almost like it made me feel like, and I know this is probably not what it was, but it made me feel like I couldn't get a response from a technological angle out of David until I acted dumb, like I didn't know what was going on. I thought that was interesting too, but that could just be me being sensitive, right? Do I believe in the flip of the switch? I don't know. Could something like that happen? Well, I mean, we're not venture capitalists or banks or institutions, so I don't know, right? Like, you'd have to see a scenario where there's an instant need, an instant demand, an instant acquisition of the asset from bodies that hold large amounts of capital, right? Like, and I'm talking like there had better be a store value narrative associated with the token by then, right? Like a reason for them to be like, we're aping in on this. Like, could it happen? Sure, anything can happen, but how do you get there, right? And that was something else that I told folks, like, man, I see people tagging David and Brad and some of the stupidest stuff, and it's like, bro, stop. All right, like, you guys are asking stuff that doesn't even matter, like win $10,000 XRP, blah blah blah. It's like, man, ask the basic questions, all right, and you'll get the answers you're looking for, all right. And the question that I pose to people, not saying I'm telling you guys what to do, but if I were you, if you notice, I don't ask David Schwartz any questions, all right. It doesn't mean I know everything, but I know what I need to know, all right. I'm not tagging Brad Garlinghouse and saying, hey, Brad, you know, now I may do like sarcastic type stuff sometimes, which is what I did on that post. And I don't even think David realized it. And I said that, David, I don't think you detected the hint of sarcasm in this post, but thank you for breaking it down. But if you're going to ask anything, what you need to ask, because a lot of the skeptical arguments are centered around coins in circulation and market cap, right? So if I were an inexperienced investor, or I didn't understand how the metrics worked in market behavior, what I would be asking David, if I wanted to know whether or not a token was going to go up in price and how it would go up in price, are these few questions. David, how do we get to an environment where we see the circulating supply and the open market, or the open market supply of XRP, significantly reduced. At the same time, how do we see demand for the token significantly ramp up? And then the next question after that I would be asking is, what are some of the things from your personal perspective that you could see contributing to a store of value narrative for the token, so that institutions, companies, businesses, venture capitalist firms hold the asset long term and remove it from the open market? That's it. That's all you need to ask. Because what you all really want to know is, how are we going to get wealthy? How are we going to get rich? And no one, and I'm going to tell you right now, because I had some people try to debate, say, oh, they've been asked. No, they haven't. Okay. I know for a fact most people have not asked David or Brad those type of questions. I'm in the Twitter spaces. I follow both of them. I was following David on Quora years ago, okay, before I even brought XRP, because I was researching it. So I knew who David Schwartz was. I knew who Chris Larson was. I knew about the IMF. I knew about XRapid, XCurrent, etc. Right? I knew about all of that stuff, okay? And I did some pretty extensive research on it, right? So I've seen, and that doesn't mean I've seen every question, but I've seen the nature of the majority of the questions regarding price appreciation, and no one's asking the simple questions about, okay, everyone's saying coins in circulation and market cap are a hindrance, or it's going to stop XRP from appreciating. Well, David, how do we get a higher market cap? Well, David, if an investment is about folks buying and holding more than they're selling in terms of a value proposition, then how do we get there for XRP? How do we make it to where more people want to hold the token versus selling it? Right? But you know what? People aren't going to ask that. And I know they're not going to ask it, because I've already explained how we get there. And that doesn't mean my word's better than David's. Hell, you haven't even given David a chance to answer something like that if you're not asking him the right questions. But like I said, and people still aren't asking them. Like I put that tweet out, and it's an ego thing. Like, people are probably going to see that tweet and they're going to think, well, screw him. Who are you to tell us what to ask? Okay, well then, I'm not the one crying about lack of price appreciation. I'm not the one losing sleep over it. I'm not the one frantically punching holes in my walls at home and saying I can't stand XRP or Ripple. I'm not the one reversing my stance on my hypothetical investment. Some of you out there are. So I don't need to ask the questions. And if you don't want to take my advice, hey, I'm not a financial advisor anyways. Who am I? I'm a nobody. Don't. Whiteboard. You guys love those whiteboards, huh? Well, I do have a new phone now, don't I? But you know what's going to piss me off? You know why I haven't done the whiteboard? Because if I do the whiteboard and I spend 6 hours to 8 hours in front of a board, taking leave from my job to give you guys that level of content, talking about clearing houses, the DTCC, private consortiums, private and public interop, cross-chain interop, the DTI, DEXs, etc., ISO 20022, crypto interop, and put a full workday into this, and then I go on Twitter or YouTube and I see the same doubt, skepticism, and BS questions being asked. No, I'm not going to raise my blood pressure like that. So I don't know, right? I mean, because that's what's going to happen, right? Because if you think about it like this, I already did a series where I did like 4 or 5 of them, 3 on here, 2 on Facebook, right? People still had the same questions, man. And I mean, they were like 3 hours a piece. You guys remember? 3-hour videos a piece, minimum. People still, oh, Ripple stablecoin bad. Like, God damn, man, really? Like, what? All right, let's leave these comments. Bring back the old lives, please. I might do that. All color boards rule. Yeah, I can't, dude. I opened up Google and I saw a Chat GPT article on XRP price. I scrolled right by it. I'm not gonna listen to whatever. Like people are free to do what they want, man. So what I found interesting about all of this, right? And I touched on this earlier, and I gave my little disclaimer that this is not an anti-Semitic video at all. And for those of you who don't know, the Semitic people, you know, look at the native inhabitants of those regions in Africa, Eastern Africa mainly, Northern Africa, and Israel, and what's now known as Palestine. There are several different groups that fall under the Semitic category, okay? So, look, all right, we're not on here doing any sort of, you know, Jewish hatred or anything of the sort, because it has nothing to really do with the religion or the people themselves. It has more so to do, like I stated earlier, with people who hide behind that religious banner and have, you know, unfortunately been given a certain amount of power because they belong to certain families who are colonial in nature, right? And we have to call it for what it is, okay? Anytime you see, and look, I'll be the first one to say, what happened to practitioners of the Jewish faith was some of the most terrible stuff, man, that you could imagine, right? People being put in ovens. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous, all right? And if you support any of that, or you think Jewish people as a whole are the problem, you need to get up out of here, all right? Because we're not going to do that, all right? But what I will say, like I stated, is that there are people who are a part of families, unfortunately, who hide behind or use religion to garner a certain amount of sympathy. And I think in this case, it was a good thing. It was a great thing, and it was a bad thing, right? I do think that there should have been refuge for those people who were victims of the Holocaust. Where were they going to go, man? I mean, you got a stark raving psychopath who's a meth head with a bunch of meth head troops going around and murdering babies and kids and innocent women and children and men and shit, man. I mean, now I could go into a whole thesis on how that whole thing came together and why it happened, but that doesn't matter. What matters is millions of innocent lives were lost, all right? So they deserved refuge. But unfortunately, the people who established the state in that region gave those people refuge and then turned around and used it to commit more genocide. That's not right, okay? And shame on those people who are a part of that level of hierarchy who turned around and did that. You basically enacted the same behavior that you created a state in that region for those practitioners of the faith that you all are supposed to belong to get away from. And I'm not going to be afraid to come on YouTube or any other platform and say that, okay? Nobody deserves to be misplaced from where they're native to, and nobody deserves to have to go through a Holocaust like that and not have anywhere to call home after all of their places have been war-torn and destroyed, all right? But what you don't get to do and what you shouldn't get to do is turn around and use that power to exploit regions for their native resources and to gain a stronghold in that region. And what's interesting about this, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because of what we talked about earlier with USD Tether and Hamas, right? And them using this cryptocurrency as the catalyst behind why the attack happened, right? And I feel like enough people are not paying attention to that, and they're glossing over it, all right? The moment I saw that happen, I knew this was a lot bigger than I think any of us could have imagined at this point, right? And it went deeper, right? And I touched about Ukraine, or touched on the situation with Ukraine and Russia and crypto being at the epicenter of that regarding relief funds, etc. And then the alleged rumors for entertainment purposes regarding the laundering of money, potentially congressional dollars, through FTX by way of Ukraine. Now, Ukraine, there are some elitists who belong to certain families who may or may not have lineage to that country as well, even if they're American, because keep in mind, Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, there are a few countries in that region, even Spain, right, which is on the other side, that had inquisitions where Jews had to flee. Okay, so there is a strong Jewish history in Ukraine as well. Keep that in mind. Like I said, this is nothing to do with your average citizen. This has to do with elitist families colonizing and attempting to capitalize on those beneath them, all right, or those they view beneath them, I should say. So what's even more interesting about the alleged, for entertainment purposes, rumors regarding the FTX exchange, Congress, etc., is who sits or who sat at the head of FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried. We know what he would likely classify himself as ethnically. And then what's even more interesting about it is Ukraine's history, right? And I can't speak for what Zelensky identifies as. You know, someone can help me out in the comments. I don't know if he's a practitioner of the faith or if he ethnically classifies himself as such, but I know who else does. The same gentleman who Sam Bankman-Fried went into his office with and sat down and had a long conversation about what FTX could and couldn't get away with, and was allowed to operate with impunity and embezzle billions of dollars from folks. And that's none other than Gary Gensler. Do you see where I'm going with this? Zelensky's Jewish. Gary Gensler's Jewish. Sam Bankman-Fried and his parents are Jewish. Does this mean they did this because Jews are bad people? Absolutely not. They did it because they're bad people. Okay? And you, like I said, for me, I know how to separate the two. All right? You don't get to hide behind a religion and do messed up stuff to people. All right? You don't get to do it as a Christian. I don't give a shit who you are. All right? And I don't care if YouTube kicks my channel off. So what? You're not paying me, so you can't control what I say. I'll say what I want, and if you delete it, so be it. I'll still keep saying it. What are you going to do to me? I'm tired of that, man. I'm tired. I have watched videos of more innocent lives being lost, people setting themselves on fire, dead babies with hollow skulls than I've ever seen in my life. And it enrages me that cryptocurrencies and digital assets are right in the middle of these conflicts where innocent lives are being lost. Whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, you know, these central banking families that you see that control this monopolization hide under that banner. And these are the same folks that are going to be directly intertwined with this digital blockchain distributed ledger based monetary system. So if you don't think all of this stuff is intertwined with one another, you've got another thing coming. Okay? And for the man himself, Gary Gensler, who we just talked about, to be sitting, it is criminal, in my humble opinion, for him to even hold a position at the SEC that powerful. There's no way a banking lobbyist should be allowed to come from Goldman Sachs into a federal regulatory body and make decisions regarding market movement when a lot of those institutions, JP Morgan included, have been cited for what? Market manipulation, precious metals manipulation, you name it. And they get a smack on the wrist and they get to go about their business and keep doing the same thing, as long as they grease the right pockets. And for this man to sit in front of students at MIT with a smug look on his face and talk about how a company like Ripple would have to relinquish half of its ownership, maybe in the form of its native token, over to the top 20 correspondent banks, and everyone's sitting around here with their thumbs up their butts crying because they just can't seem to understand why Ripple and XRP can't get anywhere. They can't understand why we're not seeing institutional usage. They can't understand why this stuff didn't go anywhere. Blah, 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 blah. I'm so sad. I hate Joe Katz. I hate David Schwartz. I hate Neil Hartner. I hate freaking Brad Garlinghouse. I'm so mad. And you are showing me you have no reading comprehension skills and you don't know how to listen. The man sat right in front of your faces and told you the entire playbook before he got into a position powerful enough to implement it. And everyone just looked over it and said, well, we don't care what Gary Gensler said he was going to do and what was going to have to happen in order for Ripple and XRP and all these other digital assets to be successful. We just want what we want now. And we don't have any understanding of it because we don't know how to listen, because we have the attention span of an autistic goldfish. Yeah, that's what you're dealing with right now in the crypto community. Yes, David Schwartz is also Jewish. So what does that tell you, right? That goes back to my original point. You can't look at an ethnic group or practitioners of religion and say they're all bad when he's Jewish, just like Gary Gensler is, just like who else? Sam Bankman-Fried, just like the Rothschilds. Do I need to continue? And what's Ripple working on? Central banking digital currencies, aren't they? And those top families that control those central banks, what are they, right? So you have good people and you have bad people on both sides of the fence, right? No pun intended to a certain politician who made that comment. I'm not originally from Ohio. What made you ask that? That's an interesting question. Why'd you ask if I was from Ohio? I'm going to pause on that because there's a reason I'm asking that. So we're going to pause until you answer that question. Why'd you want to know if I was from Ohio? He said, I think I know you, bro. Like I said, I'm not from Ohio, but what part? And you might know me. I'll say this. I have a crap ton of family in Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I got some family in Florida, and a few other places, right? Texas? No, I'm not from Texas. Texas is cool, though. Cincinnati? Yeah, I got fam in Columbus. But no, I'm not from Ohio, but I have lived in Ohio. I will say that. And like I said, I got a lot of family in Ohio. Look, I don't know how to say your name. It starts with an E. And I need glasses. That's why I'm squinting like that. I'll say this. The goal, look, when I say people are stupid, all right, I want everyone to understand something here. I'm going to make this clear. I don't think people who are trying to learn are stupid, okay? The people who I think are stupid are the ones who act like they have the facts, who act like they know everything definitively in a space that's constantly evolving and growing and changing, and they come onto these platforms and they try to almost assert their opinions as fact, right? And half of the time they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand interoperability. They don't understand the difference between a stable coin and a blockchain's native asset. You know, this is the next time you hear someone say, oh, the XRP ledger having a stable coin is a bad thing, you say, okay, wait a second. What about Tron and ERC20? Don't they have stable coins? Isn't USDC on Ethereum's network? Huh. What's Ethereum priced at again? I don't. Like I told David, you know, I'm you know, not the sharpest tool in the shed. I forgot what Ethereum's priced at. What's Ethereum? Someone help me out there, please. I forgot. What is it? What is ETH at? I don't know. What, $20? I think Ethereum's at, I don't know, $50, $75. Someone help me out in the chat. Oh, what's that? What's that number? $3,092. You don't say. You don't say. No, there's no way, right? I mean, how did Ethereum go that high? Don't they have a stable coin that's USD backed on it? I mean, the stable coins, right? That's supposed to take the place of Ethereum, right? Well. Oh, I gotta read this comment. That's classic, man. He said, want to practice kissing? I'll keep socks on so it's not gay. Oh my God. Oh man, I love a good troll. That's hilarious. You guys, man, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I this is the part of YouTube I missed. You guys say some outrageous stuff, man. That was funny. But yeah, right? Like, so I can't stop laughing at that. That was fun. I gotta screenshot that. Come on, phone. That was funny. XSP, I mean, for me, hypothetically, and unofficially, I like XSP. You know, it's basically the XTC network's Uniswap. Now, what I will say is, I mean, obviously, what attracted me to XRP was one of the main features was it having a native decentralized exchange, and that's kind of what differentiates it from other protocols. Like, I mean, the Ethereum network has Uniswap, but it's not native to ERC20. It's external, right? And I can tell you right now, I used to troll groups in Quora silently and laugh at all the comments about how inefficient Uniswap was for users and how long they had to wait for their exchanges to go through, right? And that's kind of one of the things you're going to see regarding a platform that doesn't have a native DEX built into it, right? You're going to see some issues. Doesn't mean it's terrible, but if you start talking about institutions, they're not going to want to deal with that, right? Public blockchains already have enough inefficiencies. You don't want to compound it with something that's going to exchange any form of value for any form of value. That's slow, right? In terms of how it exchanges. LCX, from what I've seen, it looks decent. I'll have to take a deeper look at it before I give my personal yay or nay on it, because that's all I do, right? I don't tell you guys what to invest in. I say from my personal perspective what I like, right? Now, what you choose to do after that, like I always say, I'm not an official financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. Do your own due diligence and research, and make sure you understand the assets that you're investing into before you do so. This is simply my perspective. If you choose to, you can pair my perspective with yours only after you've done all of that yummy due diligence, and make sure that you understand the risks associated with jumping into the crypto market, of course, because that's paramount. Flare, I don't know, man, right? Like, I look, I'm a little conflicted on Flare. I don't think it's bad, but I don't know just how good it's going to be. Now, if it can do what Hugo says it's going to do, watch out, right? But we have to see. And Flare is a little shadowy, right? Like, it's not one of those protocols that, you know, we hear a ton about. You know, they're not very vocal, and I don't like how the airdrop was handled. That kind of pissed me off, right? So I'll just say that, and without going into detail. Could, Brandon, it could, right? It just depends. It depends on what addressable markets are being targeted, right? Will it tokenize more? Maybe it's a global trade and finance AIM token and network, right? So, I mean, you could see more items, but will you see more value tokenized on the XTC network versus the XRP ledger? That's anyone's guess, right? We don't know yet. And anyone who tells you definitively they know the answer to that question is lying. David Schwartz doesn't even know. None of us know. Stronghold, you guys know how I feel about Stronghold. If you've been following me on Twitter, I think it's decent, right? And shout out to everyone who holds Stronghold, who got in and got that run up, right? Huge congrats. Velo, I've heard some positive things about Velo as well. Like I said, I don't, as of late, I'll be 100% honest, I haven't been researching a ton of protocols, right? You know, I know about Quant, I know about not Velo, but Cello. I know a little bit about Velo, XDC, XSP, GBEX, WadsPay, or WTK, Casino Coin, shout out to Daniel. You know, your XLMs, Quant for me I hate that it's so expensive, but you know, I'd be a liar to say Quant, in my humble opinion, unofficially would be a pretty good utility bet. Sologenics, well, yeah, that's going to be the tokenization mechanism for the XRP ledger, or at least one of the mechanisms, right? So, and this is another thing that I want people to realize. Ripple, they do hold a significant amount of XRP, but what you also have to realize is that Ripple's not the only company out there that can capitalize off of the asset or the ledger, right? Keep in mind that even if Ripple, something happens, right? Let's say Ripple failed tomorrow. Someone could pick up what's in that escrow, and other institutions, if they so chose to, could benefit off of the technology regarding the token and the ledger and the decentralized exchange, the automated market makers, and all the other cool amendments that will likely come to life at some point in the not so distant future on the protocol, right? So, dude, I'm not gonna look. I know you guys want to know my thoughts on, you know, 1,000 different tokens. I'm not. Let me tell you something, all right? And I've said this I don't know how many times before. The rich don't become wealthy by diversifying in 100 different projects unless you have like over $200,000 to go and do that efficiently, right? You're only working with a few grand. You had better stick to like maybe 3 to 5 protocols max. Or if you can get into quality protocols that are like a fraction of a penny, then you can do more, right? But in the meantime, don't do that to yourself, right? Because you're going to screw yourself over. Yeah, like I said, the folks in the Discord, they know all about Velo, right? And they'll have your back on that. I don't know everything, man. You know, I'll be the first one to say it. And that's the thing about me, right? I've always kept it real. I don't know everything, man. There are just some protocols out there. While I say, you know, be careful with how you diversify, the other truth to that is that, man, I don't know about all these protocols. I don't. There's so many, you know. I can't keep up with everything. I chose, hypothetically, a few to focus on, and that's where I kept my focus at. Doesn't mean I won't, you know, branch out and learn more about some of them, but I also know, like I said, if the goal is to get wealthy, you don't want to be over-diversified, right? You don't want to do that. And you don't need, and the thing is, you don't need to do that. Man, it's freaking cold out here. Look at this, man. This is the type of weather we got to deal with, man. I swear, man. Like, it was just nice. I hope no one stole my video games. I got Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 literally sitting on my car's front seat. And I'm like, damn, I don't know if I locked that door. And a tweaker might have broken into my car and took it. For Super Nintendo. Yes, I like retro games. Let's see. Did someone steal my food or my games? Yay, it's there. Woohoo. Well, I don't see my games. Hold on. There they go. Ta-da! See, look, guys. Yes, I like old school retro games. Now, we have out here in the greater Seattle area, man, there are a ton of, like, you know, car break-ins and stuff. I don't even lock my doors, man, because I'm like, man, you're not going to break my damn windows. If you want something in my car, just go in there and take it, man. Like, I'd rather you do that than break my windows. The shit, I feel like, hey, man, if you're down that bad, you got to do stuff like that, then you need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's times I've even left, like, a few bills in my car. Like, you know, I know how hard it is for people out there, man. With what I do, if you know, I can feel it. I can imagine what it would be like to not have anywhere to go and lay your head at, you know. And that's not saying that I promote delinquency, you know, and deviant behavior, but hey, man, you know, people are going to do what they got to do. You said, no, you do not know anything. Not that's one of the key points to becoming more intelligent, is realizing you don't know anything. You're absolutely right about that, James. And the truth is, none of us do, right? We could theorize. I mean, there's stuff we know, but there's stuff we don't, right? I'm just looking at these comments. I need to get my beard trimmed, man. Came back from Colombia and gotta get cleaned up, man. I like that. Wisdom begins in wonder. That's absolutely correct, right? I still learn new stuff at work all the time, man. I've been in IT for quite some time. You know, I don't know everything. You know, something new can happen every day, you know, with the system or an application that you've never seen before, you know. So yeah, while I may get irritated with people, it's a certain type of person. Like I said, not knowing, and that's the thing. People have to remember, ignorance itself is not stupidity. Ignorance just means you don't know. And I'm ignorant to a lot of things, as I'm sure everyone in here is. None of us know everything, right? I've always strived to be one of those people that knew a little about a lot, right? Because you're more well-versed, in my opinion, and then you can use the little that you do know as a foundational building block throughout the years as you become more passionate about some of those subjects to increase your knowledge, right? No, I'm not walking around in Colombia. I was in Colombia for like 9 days. I went to Medellin with my baby cousin and our friends to celebrate her birthday. I actually wasn't going to go. Funny story. But she's a published author, and I couldn't make her book signing, man. And it pissed me off because, like, we had so much stuff going on at work I couldn't take off. And a bunch of our family was there. And what's really cool about it is she would be my great aunt, I think she said. It was a book about her grandmother, my great aunt, who came, she was from Ponce, and she moved from Puerto Rico to New York, and my cousin was actually raised by her, right? And I'm not going to go into all the family details about why and this, that, and the third, because that's not touched on in the book, and that's her business, but and our family's business. But, you know, just know it's a really good book. Cool story, and it's basically about, it's a children's book, right? And basically it shows how, she taught her Spanish, taught her the culture, and she taught my great aunt English. So it's a cute book, man. If you have kids, if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen the name of the book, and I've posted links for it. So if you ever want to go and buy it, just check me out on Twitter, and you can see the links. But I say all that to say I couldn't be there, right? And her and my uncle and my relatives made sure I had pictures of the event. It was beautiful, man, to see her accomplish that. And she did her book signing in the Lower East Side in Manhattan. That's where she's from. And, we got family between there and the Bronx, etc. I felt bad, man, that I couldn't be there for her. And she really wanted me to come. But there were some issues with the publishing. So what ended up happening is I brought 4 books, and when her birthday trip came up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go check her out. And I wanted to see her anyways, and so I took my books there and got them signed when I saw her in Colombia. And she chose Medellin for her birthday destination this year. And so we all went out there, man, and had a blast. It was cool. It was cool, man. You hear a lot of bad stuff about Colombia, and I know this isn't crypto talk, but just to kind of touch on it, from what I saw in Colombia, yeah, it has its issues, but to me, man, it was no different. I mean, I'll say this: there's an old saying. You go to one place in Latin America, you've kind of been to them all, right? And those who are Latino in here who have been to several different countries in these areas kind of know what I'm getting at, right? You're gonna have violence in all of them, right? You're gonna have drugs in all of them, just like you have in the U.S. You may even have a certain degree of lawlessness and corruption, right? Just like you have in the U.S. But what you're also gonna have is beautiful culture, people who can make the most out of nothing, okay? And people who aren't sitting around constantly complaining about the strifes and some of the turmoils that may be going on where they live. They make the best out of everything. And that's what I saw in Colombia, man. In some regards, it was no different from being in any other big city like New York. I've been to a lot of big cities, man. T, when are we looking at 2030 max for this to kick into gear? I don't know, bro. Right. I don't really do dates. I hope that was a bro. I don't really do dates, right? The only time I will cite a date is if it's something cool from a technological perspective that's going to happen or take place, whether it be testing or implementation of something. But outside of that, in terms of when something's going to skyrocket in price, man, no one knows that, man. I think one of the best answers that was given was from David Schwartz himself. And he said, ultimately, the market will determine when and how the price of XRP reacts, right? No one knows when. I can tell you what, though, if you see the right series of geopolitical accelerants, catastrophes, financial calamities, dumping of U.S. Treasury bonds, the abandonment of the petrodollar, countries trading outside of the U.S. dollar, and not relying on it as a reserve, you're going to start seeing some stuff ushered in that can remedy some of that and soften the blow. When does that happen, man? The first thing you're going to have to see is you're going to have to see legislation and regulations fully implemented, right? I'm not saying there's no regs and no laws. There's not enough for what needs to happen for utility type assets to truly go up. And I know you need a healthy speculative environment, but here's what I say to that, okay? Where you have a lot of folks who will say, well, XRP went to almost $4 just off retail alone. No, it didn't, okay? That is one of the biggest myths I have ever seen in my life. Do you really think when it had a circulating supply of like 30 to 40 billion, that retail dollars alone was what drove XRP to almost $4? Are you kidding me? That's impossible. That's not what happened. What happened, more than likely, were there were venture capitalists and institutional affiliates with a huge amount of money that started dumping into it and then shorting it at some point, right? Or maybe they knew the lawsuit was going to come. And I'm just saying, right? Those are all theories, but I can tell you this: there's not enough retail interest for it to have been people of our nature to drive that price to where it's at. And I'll give you an example, right? There was I've been here for a while, man. A lot of us have. You remember the pump and dump scheme that they tried on Reddit with XRP? And there are a lot of people involved with that, if you remember. I was in those Reddit rooms and seeing like what people were trying to do. And we're all going to buy XRP on this day. There are over 100,000 people in the XRP Facebook group that I started in, Kurt as well, who were in on this as well. Man, you're talking a buttload of people who were committed to buying the asset all at the same time. You know what that asset got to? Let's see if anyone remembers. I remember how high it got. K Moore's in here. Where's my buddy at, man? He said, "Get your popcorn ready for fall Q3." Yeah, it's going to be interesting after these regs and laws get passed, and it's happening quick. We're going to see if anyone remembers what it got to. No, not 300. It got to 70. I'll give you the answer. It got to 70 cents. And like I said, thousands upon tens of thousands I mean, a lot of people. That was a lot of volume, man. And it was quick, and then it dropped right back down. So you know what that told me? With that high of the circulating supply and market cap, it can go up, but you need the right factors to be implemented for it to happen, right? It ain't going to be just retail fiat, shooting it up like that. So when you see stuff like that happen, especially with something that has a high market cap and a high circulating supply, and it shoots up out of nowhere, man, that's usually because some venture capitalists and some big boys with some big money are jumping into it and you can't see them, right? So don't buy into that narrative that your average GameStop and AMC investor did that. And stocks use completely different metrics, all right? And you have to think it's a game with the hedge funds essentially, and you're trying to play against their shorts, right? So it's totally different from the same mechanics that you would use for a cryptocurrency, all right? There's already heavy institutional interest in those two from a hedge fund perspective. That ain't happening right now with XRP. So you see where I'm going with this? K Moore, the Billy Goat, man. We got a few Billy Goats in the chat today, man. We got the Discord up in here. We got K Moore. We got, yeah, man, the Goats came out. Give that man a welcome, man. And yeah, I just because we're not out on Front Street, I'm only doing this video because I think it's important, I made a promise to you guys, man, a long time ago, and I don't think you remember. But I told you guys there would come a time where, number one, folks like me, K Moore, Crypto 901, Chico, Chris Bennett, the H-Style folks, etc., we wouldn't be around anymore. Like there will eventually come a time where it'll be like we fell off of the face of the earth unless you know us personally. And then some of you in here do know some of us personally, right? But some of you don't. And I made a promise and said, we're not shillers. We're not going to come on here and do content for pay and all this craziness. But when we see times growing, hard, when we see you guys getting weary and struggling, and when things need to be said, we'll poke our heads out. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just poking my head out for you guys. And like I said, we're all going through something, and this is therapeutic for me, man, to come on here and just kick it with you guys and talk, as well. So it's cool to have that interaction and, chop it up about some of the stuff that's going on. But I think people need to understand the bigger picture. And like I said earlier, if you start connecting the dots between the global conflicts that are happening, crypto being at the epicenter, what Gary Gensler said about how they were going to maneuver with these companies and not let them pass unless they played the game and paid the toll, then you know exactly why it's been so hard for some of these folks. especially Ripple. They don't want to just lay down and accept that. Now, the harsh reality about this, and I hate to say it, right, because the whole purpose of crypto should have been freedom, all right? But the harsh reality is you're never truly going to see that, even in a capitalist society. Freedom in this country, while I have sworn to protect, defend, and secure it twice over, because I still work for DOD, even though I'm not active duty anymore, is an illusion for entertainment purposes. This has nothing to do with my unwavering loyalty to the country that I chose to serve and that I took an allegiance to serve. But with that being said, I have to call a spade, all right? And this ain't even the America that I was serving when I was active duty. This country has changed, all right? And then I'm not going to say why it changed. I'm not going to talk badly about anyone in any specific seat in higher levels of government, but I will say this: things need to change, in my humble opinion, on a wide array of subjects. But with that being said, with the perceived illusion of freedom, you have to understand what that means for these fintech companies that are essentially fighting for it. All right, that means that it's going to be a lot more difficult. And that's where you see the holes and the cracks within our alleged democracy in this country, right? This is all, make no mistake about it, this is all about control. That is why you haven't seen crypto on a large scale succeed. And I told you guys earlier with Ethereum and Bitcoin why they were able to significantly appreciate, because they're able to be controlled and manipulated properly to their tune regarding the top 1% in the form of venture capitalists, banks, and institutional affiliates. Okay. Oh, let me set these keys down. I was doing good. So you have to understand how this game works. All right. Now, what's likely going to have to happen here, and you'll never hear about it, is at some point behind the scenes, there's going to have to be a transition of ownership at some point of, they're going to get it one way or another. They're either going to take those tokens from Ripple, or they're going to have to come to some sort of an agreement regarding that escrow at some point, or they're going to want cash. The SEC is basically telling them, look, and you have to look at it like this. The SEC is not truly the enemy. It's being used as a vehicle to be the enemy, all right? The true enemy that you're seeing here are the banks behind the SEC, manipulating them and using them and leveraging them as a weapon against these private fintech companies, okay? Doing Gestapo-type freaking shakedowns. I told folks, man, I said, if you look at the hierarchy of the SRC, not the entire organization, they're structured like a mafia. How they deal with these companies, man. It's crazy. And this is a federal regulatory organization we're talking about here. You got to pay the toll, man. It's a rite of passage for disruptive companies. If you are going to be a disruptor to the current establishment, you had better get in line, and they had better get their cut. And if they don't get their cut, you are going to go through it. And that is why you're seeing what's going on with Ripple and XRP. Okay, they're going through it because they're not going to lay down and just take it. But at some point, it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to look at themselves in the mirror and go sit at a table with some folks and say, look, what do you really want from us? All right, what's the real end goal here? What do we need to give you? And it ain't fiat. You'll just take fiat if we're not going to give you what you really want. How you know I can flip? Who is that said do a backflip? How you know I can flip? See, we got some folks in here that really know me. I'm not gonna do a backflip right now, man. I got steel toe boots on. I work in the engineering department, man. We gotta have our PPE gear on. I can't do a flip in those steel toes. Now I'm curious who that is that said that, because a lot of people don't know I can flip. That's funny. See, y'all being here incognito with no pictures and weird names. Yeah, that's someone who knows me. What do you mean how? How can I do a backflip? I do a round off and then jump in the air, tuck my knees to my chest, and flip myself over. Yeah, I can still flip. I just don't do it like that anymore. I need to stretch too before I do it. But I'm not about to hit a backflip out here. Yo, yeah, and steel toes. Yeah, I ain't doing that. These are too heavy for that, man. Do you not think people focus should be on the BTC dominance chart? Absolutely. For now, yeah, I think Bitcoin. You know what's it's funny you mentioned that. Bitcoin is what you need to be watching right now in regards to the crypto market, because the entire market's how it behaves is gonna be dictated off of that until it's not. And the decoupling that everyone's talking about is gonna have to come. There's gonna have to be several things that happen. I can still flip, man. Like I said, whoever that is that said that has seen me flip before. Like I used to be really stupid, man. I used to flip off of stuff. I used to when I was young. I used to have my dad. He used to like cup his hands and he'd throw me in the air, and I'd do all, man. Yeah, I was a flipping fool, man. Do front tucks, twists, aerials off of stuff. Like I could hop up on this table right here and do an aerial right off of it. The bane and I'll do it one of these days, man. My voice is a little off right now. T, why is MetaMan so mad at Ripple? Because MetaMan's frustrated, man. You know, he's been around a while, and he feels like he's getting screwed over, and he is. Everyone is that's hypothetically invested in it. But you're not getting screwed by Ripple. Ripple's not the problem. It's the incumbent banks that are banding together to try and stop this stuff, man. I know it looks like them. I know it looks like, you know, there could be nefarious practices on their end, but that's not what it is, man. I'm not saying that they're all saints. What I'm saying is that you got some seriously powerful people in the form of these banks and institutions behind the scenes that are going to make this extremely difficult if they can't have. And that's the thing, right? They don't want to pay for it, right? Like JP Morgan ain't trying to give them the amount that it would cost to buy the escrow. No, we're going to power grab and get it at a steep discount, and you're basically going to give it to us, right? These are shakedown tactics, man. And this isn't going to be made public, but that's what they want. JP Morgan will never come out and say that. These banks will never come out and say that, right? Folks think it's just supposed to be a fair market environment, you know, where they where they go in and do their thing and buy on the secondary market like everyone else, man. But it doesn't work like that, man. Not for them, not for the top correspondent banks. Now, for the banks underneath them, sure, you can go out there on the secondary market and buy on these exchanges, but we're too good for that. We should be able to get the drop on it. You should sell it to us for way more, or excuse me, way less than what it's currently worth. And if they're not going to get that type of deal from Ripple and be able to control something that they can integrate, and see, that's the thing, right? I don't see an environment where the correspondent system is actually replaced. I see an environment where the correspondent system does their best and eventually takes control over the digital assets regarding global trade and finance, cross-border transactions, remittances, derivative swapping, smart contract application, security, etc. And they integrate that stuff along with ISO standards like messaging and digital token identifiers into this big bundle to essentially enact foreign exchange and all of the other stuff that they need to do cross borders for the entire globe, right? It will never go away. JP Morgan, listen, Brad Garlinghouse made a saying, or quoted a saying, or made a quote. Blah, I'm all over the place. Made a quote a long time ago. I think it was him who said before these banks gave up control, you would see tanks and blood in the streets. Now, people thought he meant that would be happening here, but you're seeing that battle going on right now, and there are tanks and there is blood, in the streets as we speak. Look at all those deceased babies in Israel and Palestine, right? Look at all the crap that happened in Russia and Ukraine. Look at the stuff that's happening in all these countries where digital assets are being the epicenter of these conflicts. Okay, it's already happening. All right, the Americans are just so crazy. Good luck coming over here trying to wage any type of war, because you're not even going to make it to our shores, man. Let alone through our airspace. The U.S. Navy will. I look, man. I can't even talk about. Look, I'll just tell you like this: the United States military is not to be effed with. All right, and that's not me saying that, you know, we're right in everything we do, and, you know, we're angels and saints in terms of the organizations, you know, and special forces, etc. Everyone has their flaws, but what I'm saying is that don't think of it on a localized level, because you probably won't see that. All right, you'll never see folks paragliding into our airspace, you know, on you know, basically, you know, adult-sized kites and coming in through canoes through our oceans, and then just dropping people at a random music festival. That ain't gonna happen here, man. All right. Oh, the Air Force too. Yeah, the Air Force Special Ops. They're bad mofos, man. The Navy, forget about it. Like, I mean, yeah. Like I said, you wouldn't even make it to American shores doing some craziness like that. But that's why people don't take what Brad Garlinghouse said as full fact, because it's not happening here. A lot of people heard that and they thought, oh, well, maybe they'd roll out tanks here and this, that, and the third, and we're not seeing that. No, you are seeing it. Like I said, the conflict has already began regarding libertarian type freedoms with fintech companies and open source protocols, and this so-called democratic capitalist society where I guess anything goes. But is that really true? Does anything really go here? You know, Andrew Tate, whether you love him or hate him, said something really profound. And he said, you know, America, you know, gives off this illusion of freedom and choice. And he said, you know what America does? America lets people decide stupid stuff for themselves, like, oh, I'm a guy and I want to be a girl, or vice versa, right? And you know, they get people divided and arguing over the stupid stuff that doesn't really matter. But if you say something important, they try to take your voice away from you and the platforms that you're using to do it. And you know what's funny about that? Look at TikTok. Why is Congress going out? You got people out here living out of their cars, surviving off Tootsie Rolls and corner store waters. You got people living in cardboard boxes and tents. You got folks that don't even know where their next meal is going to come from. You got people out here who will never be first-time homeowners because the Federal Reserve is so corrupt, they'll never touch those interest rates for at least another decade. You got folks out here hurting. And Congress is worried about TikTok? Come on, folks. Why do you think that is? Because like Andrew Tate said, people are saying important things on there. So a team of 4 special forces guys can do so much damage to any country. Yeah. You know what's funny? So out here in Washington, there's a whole thing regarding assault rifles, and I think it's retarded, right? Folks are like, wow, well, you know, that's the right thing to do, and all these mass shootings. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, you know, half of the people doing this can't even shoot that well. If I went and I took 5 of my mags, put it on a belly band, and took my Glock 21, and I'm not saying I would ever do anything like this, and I would not, okay? But I'm just giving an example here for hypothetical purposes. And I walked into any crowded area of my choice, I could do more damage in probably less than 30 seconds with 1 Glock 21 and 5 bags than most folks who don't have any knowledge or training with how to shoot a gun are going to do with an AK-47. Okay? AKs aren't even the most accurate anyways. I mean, there are accurate assault rifles out there, but it's like, come on, man. Like, it's overblown, all right? You got a few crazy people who are just going to do crazy things sometimes, right? Yeah, regs are being worked on as we speak. This is true. And laws. Most importantly, laws. Because that's when you're going to see some of these institutions, and even and we're always focused on like banks and venture capitalists, right? And they're important, but what you really want to see with stuff like this, when you start talking about open source decentralized protocols, are companies, right? You start seeing companies, whether it be gaming companies, commerce companies like eBay, Amazon, etc., getting involved, right? And I'm not just talking about an AWS partnership that people have been talking about to get money out of people's pockets for the past 5 years. No, I'm talking about actual acquisition and usage by these companies by the buttload, right? You'll start seeing that type of stuff happen, and then it'll start reaching a retail front when law is passed, right? And you won't see it before then, not on that level. XRP prediction, you guys know I don't typically do that. I don't know, man. I tell you like this, they get through these legal woes and we see favorable legislation and regs, sky's the limit. And I don't care what anyone says. And you can tell me, the circulating supply is too high and the market cap's too high already and there's not much room for growth per traditional metrics, but I know better. Because in this environment, it's not necessarily about how high or how much something has or how high the market cap is. It's, even though they're relevant, they're relative in certain environments and scenarios, right? It matters now, but does it matter if you see acquisition and hold of the asset and minimal selling, right? And that doesn't mean there won't be selling of the asset, because there will be. But do you see an environment where the supply is dwindled down and the demand is shot up, right? If you do see that, then it ain't gonna matter. If it's on a large enough scale, it won't matter how much is out there in existence, right? So that's how you got to look at this. If you don't look at it that way, then the best advice I could give you is have short-term targets for it. $2, $5, $7, $12. Heck, you look one day and it's $20 and you don't have faith that there's going to be a significant acquisition and holding of it from a store of value narrative, then you do what you got to do. Me on the other hand, I'm looking at them targeting the derivatives market and looking at what the token was used for in its earlier days regarding proof of concept testing, with it replacing Nostro accounts. I mean, look, man, like for me, it's not rocket science. It's just a matter of patience and time, law, and maybe some reduced corruption, or maybe Ripple playing ball with the corrupt parties behind the scenes. And we won't hear about it, but there's gonna have to be some ball played. Yeah, I'll probably leave the video up. Hold on, did you say the Fed won't touch interest rate for at least 10 years? Expound on that viewpoint if you can. Well, for me, I think inflation is a strategic weapon. I personally think that our government, or not necessarily our government, but look, I'm going to be 100% honest. I think the Federal Reserve is ran by psychopaths. I do. I don't think, and this is the reason why we went off of the gold standard, so that they could purposely inflate currency. These folks, think about it. Imagine the look on people's faces who allegedly held gold with us, only to find out that we were insolvent when the time came around. That's why we're not on a gold standard anymore, because people were getting screwed, man. This country, I love it, but at the same time, when you start looking at private entities like the Fed getting involved in doing what they've been doing, this is insane, man. You really think look, I think the Fed, in correlation with other private banks, want the interest rates to be high, because a part of me believes that they want to roll out an ownership class in this country. Okay, think about it like this. You tell me how many new first-time home buyers you're going to see in an environment like this where interest rates are 6 to 7%, even if you have good credit, and the median asking price for a home in this area alone is close to $700,000. In what world is that realistic? What am I going to tell my kids? Hey, you can make it to where dad's at in 20 years if you're lucky, and then maybe you'll be able to go and buy a home? You got to be out of your mind, man. That's not the American dream, man. Folks, you understand? That's not. I don't, and that's the thing, right? If you have kids, what do you tell them in this type of an environment? I'm not even being, look, man, I'm not going to say what I make, but I tell you right now, there are traveling nurses that don't even make what I make. All right. And what am I supposed to tell my children? That you can go out there and be a me? Man, I'm not even 40, so I won't say it happened. It took forever for me, but it didn't happen overnight for me to reach the level that I've reached. That's not realistic for, children who are just turning 18. You're going to see a generation now where kids ain't even going to be able to move out of the freaking house until they're in their 20s. And I'm talking like 26, 27. 50-year mortgages, right? There's no way in hell I would buy a home in this environment right now. And look, at one point in time, I was looking because I was like, oh, this equity looks nice. Maybe I'll invest in another property overseas. Not with these interest rates, I won't. Are you kidding me? Folks will call me and be like, man, you sure do have a lot of equity. And I'm like, look, I'm just going to level with you. I won't even hang up. But I'll just tell you this right now. Don't call me, man, about taking an equity loan out with interest rates at 6%. What do you think, I am a moron? And the fact, and I think what they're doing, right, to get back to your question, I think what they're doing is they're weaponizing the economy to create a permanent rental class, to have more subservient individuals under more control. They don't want you, and it's cliche, but instead of saying they want you out, what folks should be saying is they don't want you having appreciative assets. And if you have them, they're going to want to punish you for it. I mean, come on, unrealized capital gains. So if you hold crypto in a cold storage wallet, and let's say you have over $500,000 worth, guess what you got to start doing? Paying 1% every year? How fair is that? And you think they're going to lower interest rates? They don't even want people owning homes. How do you think we have a sustainable real estate bubble right now that hasn't popped yet, with interest rates at 7% and a median asking price in most states across the country for homes at over $600,000 a pop? And if you could answer that question for me, then you'll know exactly why they ain't going to lower interest rates. And I can tell you right now, it ain't your average home buyer propping this real estate market up. It's disgusting what they've done and what they're doing. It's crazy. Like they're literally, but see, look, that doesn't surprise me, right? That's the thing, okay? These guys know what they're doing, and they've been playing the system for a long time, man, because they are the system, all right? And it is a concerted effort, in my opinion, to cancel out the middle class. It's not even that, and here's the scary thing, right? They don't want to cancel out the middle class. They want a middle class, they just want you to stay there. See, that's what no one's saying. They're like, oh, there won't be a middle class. There will simply be poor and rich. Not in this country. No, they just don't want you to ascend above that, right? So you'll be what's referred to as, they'll change the title and you'll be like a working poor middle, right? I know it sounds crazy, but that's the thing. You have to think this country is propped up via tax dollars off of the backs of middle class, working folks, right? So they don't want that to go away. If you're poor, you can no longer, your dollars don't matter anymore, because if hyperinflation stays a thing at that level, then your tax dollars are essentially useless at that point unless they raise it. And then if they raise it, the folks that are in homes can't afford them anymore. They get foreclosed on. You get ushered out of your home. And then what about property taxes? If you see mass foreclosures everywhere, right? Why do you think at that point interest rates ended up back at like 1% and 2% and 3%, right? That's the thing. The real estate market is probably your largest market. and if that goes kaput because people can't afford anything anymore, well, then how do you re-stimulate it, right? And that's what they're going to run into now. See, they thought they were slick. And I touched on this, if you've been following me for a while now, a long time ago, where I talked about how I saw the institutional purchasing of properties, and I said, I see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to create a permanent rental class. And now if you look, rent pretty much is the same as what a mortgage would cost you with super inflated interest rates and high asking prices for a home. They did that on purpose. Now you're no longer incentivized to buy a home because it's, oh crap, it's going to cost the same amount for me to rent as it would for me to buy. Well, and then in some respects, it may be a little less and you'll have less responsibility, because that's the thing, right? You may be able to afford to buy, but can you afford to fix? Okay. And take it from me, someone who's had, golly, man, I don't even want to talk about how much money I've had to put into a home, and it ain't even an old beat up home. You know what I'm saying? Like, things just go wrong. Okay. And you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to do maintenance on things, cars, etc. Right. So if your mortgage is already $3,500 a month, can you afford to have a $15,000 emergency happen at that point? No, you can't. But if you have a landlord that's going to have to take care of it, then that's even better for you. And that's what they want, right? And this is why these institutions out here, you understand, are purchasing those properties, because in the end, you'll have to go and see them, right? You won't know it, but by some way, shape, or form, it'll be BlackRock behind the scenes that's really your landlord. I'm not giving predictions. Like I said, I don't know when the hell it's going to happen. It will happen. Now that I will say, right? You will see significant appreciation in utility-based assets that have a real-world problem-solving capability and real-world partnerships, right? When the time is right. But short-term, man, that's anyone's guess, man. We're just going to have to kick back and wait for these laws to be signed, right? You'll own nothing and be happy. Man, that saying couldn't, golly, man, it couldn't ring any truer right now. UBI, digital slaves, exactly, right? Love them or hate them, how long has Bell been talking about universal basic income? How long, right? Regardless of how you may feel about the man, he's been preaching that for a long time, hasn't he? Just saying. So don't fall for it, man. Like I said, keep your wits, like my coworker says, keep your wits about you. And especially in these times, because they're trying times, man. You know, we're all going through it. We all, want to see this market appreciate, quicker than later. But it's going to take time. And this is why occasionally I pop my head out. This is why we have these discussions, because mentally it gets rough, man. Team UBI. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I tell you, man, I told my pops, man, I'm scared for people who don't hold crypto at this stage. I'm not saying any of us officially hold it, but I'm telling you right now, if you are not invested in digital assets, man, well, and that's the thing, right? Because what are you going to use? What are you going to use as a hedge, right? Gold is that, God, man, no one, your average person is not going out there and buying ounces of gold. Silver, nah, I'm not going to say it's a bad investment, but come on, it ain't going to do what gold did. All right. There's the stock market. Look at what just happened with GameStop. You're not going to beat the hedge funds at their own game. If they want to short something, they're going to short it, and they're going to make sure you can't sell at a certain price. So the amount of hedges that you have against inflation and against tumultuous economic times is wearing thin, right? And I think digital assets are going to be the last frontier, ultimately, of having some sort of a quality hedge against these type of market environments, right? Yeah, if you're not in by now, like I said, you're not going to make it, man. You know, I'll tell you right now, I can't confirm or deny I hold any digital assets, but in the end, me and mine will be just fine. You know, I can't speak for everyone else, man, and it scares me for folks, man, like, because that's where we're headed, literally. And it's like people just, they don't see it, man, but they will eventually. Quant, I think Quant's great. I'll be the first one to say it. You're talking about an OS that can connect institutional clients to the blockchain of their choice from a communicative aspect, dude, that's huge, right? And then obviously on top of that, you'll also have to have ledger-specific amendments for cross-chain communication, and then other CCIP-style interfaces allowing, you know, some of these ecosystems to communicate with their blockchains as well. But Quant solves a large problem that we're seeing right now with cross-chain interoperability. More so, not cross-chain interoperability, communication, right? For institutional grade clients to these environments or ecosystems, right? So me personally, I like Quant, right? And that's just my unofficial take on it. I'm not going to tell anyone to buy it. It's expensive. So if you could catch Quant on a discount, you know, you're doing good for yourself. XRP will be 2 to 3 digits by end of next year. I did not say it. He said it. I don't know what it's going to do, but I can tell you right now, when laws get passed and regs get passed and you start seeing that institutional interest flood in, if you see the right inflows flood in, the sky's the limit, man. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know what the value of it's going to be, but it ain't going to be 50 cents. I can tell you that right now. It'll be far from it. Do you think XRP and XPR or another tokens could merge? It's funny you say that. You know, I actually had the CEO of Proton. He's either Marshall Hayner, right? I don't know if he's the CEO of Proton or Metallicus, one of those damn companies or things. But he actually came on, and no disrespect to him, I just totally forgot, right? Because I'm not super immersed in that project, but we actually had a discussion. He came on one of my spaces. I had him up to kind of clear the air because there was a lot of infighting between XRP folks and XPR folks, and I got tired of it. And I had told him, I said, you know, Marshall, I read through the white paper and I saw where there was a desired interoperability regarding the XPR ecosystem and the XRP ledger, regarding Ripple's technology as well. I said, do you care to expound on that? And he did. And he told me, yes, you know, even though we may not agree with all the business practices, you know, we may have, you know, some of our differences, we definitely see value in the XRP ledger and its technology, and we would love to interoperate with it. And I have that on recording. So, yeah, interoperability at the end of the day is the name of the game, and it always will be. So this whole singular king that's going to rule them all, that's garbage. That'll never happen. Not in a utility-driven world. They all need each other, right? Metal and Ripple are located on the same block here in San Fran. Dang. See? There you go. Excuse me. I burped. Yep. So that's all, man. I don't want to make this a super long video because I got food in the car and I need to eat. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, I know this isn't going to put all of your fears at ease, you know, and that's really the only reason at this stage I even do content. I just don't want people to get so scared that they screw themselves over. And it's hard. Like I said, we're all human. We all go through things. I'm sure plenty of people have, you know, financial issues that you may not be saying anything about, things you may be struggling with. You may have family members that need help, and maybe you can only afford to do for yourself, and you're waiting for this stuff to pop off so you can help. I get it, man. I trust me. I get it more than you could ever imagine. Okay. But you'll never be able to do those things if you get rid of this stuff prematurely. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you to simply consider the possibilities of what you may hypothetically hold. Because as I always say on this channel, none of us can confirm or deny that we even hold digital assets. So all of this is theoretical and hypothetical in nature. But I am telling you, man, it would be worth it to take a step back before you make any rash decisions, because of the lack of current price action that you're seeing and being fed this narrative that we're already in a bull coin did. And because of what Bitcoin did and the altcoins aren't doing anything, that means we're going to miss it, right? What you may be witnessing, and this is just total theory, is you may be witnessing the approach of that shift, where the next bull run may not be speculative in nature for altcoins that hold utility properties. It may be a situation where they're rushing this legislation. This is rushed. Okay, if you know anything about Congress, and like I said, the folks in the Discord can definitely point you in the right direction on legislation. I've been looking at all of it, but I want you to go to them, because I'm not the only one with the answers. And Kurt and the rest of those folks, if you know how to get a hold of them, they can tell you about what's coming down the pipeline regarding regs and legislation. Okay, it's rushed. All right, I have never seen something like this where you would have thought if this weren't a big deal, they would have just tabled this crap until next year. And they brought up a good point when, folks have been telling me about this. B. Rush had even mentioned this. If they don't get this stuff done, it doesn't just get tabled, it goes away. And they have to redo all of the infrastructure regarding how they're going to do these bills, what's going to be in them, etc. They have to start all over from scratch again next year. They're not going to want to do that after putting all of that research and work into what they have currently. And it's already passed the House and the Senate for some of this stuff. Man, that's, like I said, it's not normal, because Congress usually can't get along. But what's really not normal about it is the timing that they're doing it in. During an election year, before the election, Trump getting on, and look, regardless how you feel about him or Biden, I'm not going to say anything about either one of them. But, the fact that the man got on, global television talking about Joe Biden doesn't even know what crypto is, let alone his name, like, they're telling you, man, like, this is going to be the epicenter. And I'm going to tell you, these congressmen and women know that, like, they know where we're headed to, because they're the ones that hold the keys. And you don't think they want those votes? People are already out here, saying stuff like, if you're not crypto friendly, we're not going to deal with you. You're not going to be our representative. Yeah, I agree with you, Sterling. I think before the election happens, this comprehensive framework that they're trying to implement is going to be done. And that would be my thing, right? Like, if people are that impatient and they hate waiting that badly, okay, I get it. If you don't see anything, for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'd give it 1 to 2 years and see what happens after you have full-fledged legislation and regs, right? Regarding cryptocurrencies, stable coins, custody, institutional acquisition and holding, the balance sheet situation. I dropped a little gem there, so you got to reach out to the people I told you about, the 901s, the Kurds, the HDAO discords, etc. I'm not even going to talk about it. Go ask them, and they'll give you those gems and those breadcrumbs regarding what's going on behind the scenes, because no one's talking about it. I haven't seen anyone go into detail about some of this stuff outside of the back channels, right? Because no one's focused on it right now. John Deaton, yeah, he's got my support for sure. I already put it out there publicly. I would have no problem donating to him. Don't know enough about the coin. But yeah, those are my thoughts, man, on everything, right? And, like I said, man, do your best to hold the line. If you can't, I totally get it. No one's going to judge you for it. But I know I would hate to see folks, regardless of what you hold, if it's solving a real world problem and has real world partnerships with important bodies, to sell all of what you hold now, only to find out whenever it happens that you made one of the worst decisions of your life. Okay. And I've said this before, that people who do that, and people have done it, are going to have a hard time living life after they made that decision. Okay. I don't want to speak anything bad into existence, but if you hold something and you got rid of it and you don't have a contingency in the form of another crypto or digital asset to take its place that'll also significantly appreciate, and you see something 10 to 20,000 times what it's at, and then it stays there and you can't afford to buy back into it because there's not a drop, there are some people out there who are not mentally strong enough to continue living after doing something like that. Dundee said it. Excuse my French. Dad, if you're watching this, I know you're going to say something, but I'm going to say it because it's a quote from Raoul Pal. And even though Raoul Pal sounds like paid opposition right now, in the earlier days he didn't. And he made a quote about these assets. And he said, all you have to do is be patient and understand the game. Don't fuck this up. Okay, that was his quote. Like I said, I think he may be getting paid a little bit from someone to say a certain thing or things about certain assets. Yeah, it's a dirty game. But at his core, that message that he dropped is enough to bring him back some good karma, because if you listen to it, I think you'll be okay. You said Raoul Pal, I bet he has a crap ton of XRP. Yeah, oh yeah. You know he does. You know he does. And Raoul Pal is the kind of guy that'll hold some crap forever and won't ever sell it and just leverage it, right? Robert Kiyosaki is another one of those guys. He'll leverage his assets and debt. Like, you know, a lot of rich people are like that, man. You know, they know what they're doing. They know how to play the markets. They know how to play the game. So yeah, that's all I got, man. I'm gonna go home and get out of these work clothes and eat this food, man. It's been a long few days, man, but you know, I'd be a liar to say I don't like my job a lot or my career. It's a career. I shouldn't be saying job. But the work that I do, thankful for it. I just wake up super early, man. I didn't sleep the best last night. The dog was cutting a fool and I had to let her out. So I was up at 2 in the morning and, are we close? I think we are. How close? I can't say, right? Because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But when you start seeing legislation, bipartisan legislation, regarding something that no one could agree on, suddenly hitting the forefront during an election year, prior to the election, folks, that's a sign of something, okay? So, am I going to give a definitive prediction? No, I'm not. But I can tell you what, with that being said, I think we're closer than we are further. And on that note, everyone stay safe, stay blessed. For Kurt, the 901s, the Chris Bennett's, the Chicos, the Kevs, the Outlaws, the Discord, the HDAL folks, all of you guys, I'll see you after this. And the Twitter fam too. Shout out to Baggins. And by the way, I'm just going to say this. I will never forgive some of you idiots out there that ran my friend off Twitter. I am beyond pissed about that. I don't hear Gary on Twitter anymore. I don't hear Baggins on Twitter anymore. Future isn't in any spaces anymore. And you guys suck, man, for being freaking douchebags and running them off. The last conversation I had with Baggins was that Twitter was a dumpster fire. He couldn't stand it anymore. And Kurt too. Because you guys ran him off of there as well. And Twitter's where I hang out at. So screw you guys, man. Stop being freaking, I don't know what to call you. But stop doing that. Because you're running good people away, man. All right. So with that being said, look, hard times, but with legislation on the horizon, I think we see better times. Don't mess up your hedges against this hyperinflationary environment. Don't let the Fed lie to you and tell you hyperinflation is incoming. It's already here. All right. Like I said, I told you guys this over a year ago. When you start paying $22 for maybe a 2-pound pack of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and gas is at $5 a gallon, interest rates are at 7%, and the median asking price for a home is $600,000, you are hyperinflated. Okay? Don't believe the hype. All right? The Fed are criminals. All right? And we know this. And, you know, you guys know that my thoughts on trying to create a permanent rental class and keeping the middle class forever. Right? That's what they want. I mean, John D. Rockefeller already said it. I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And then ask yourself, who is John D. Rockefeller? You know, one of these days I'm going to give you guys a system demo. Someone asked me to do one. They're like, T, man, give us a demo. I'll do it. I just got to find a way to, you know what? I think I could, because I don't have a CD player in my head unit. It's all Bluetooth, all, you know, CD-less, if that's even a word. So yeah, that'll be a fun little change of direction from a bunch of crypto talk and finance talk and tech talk. But yeah, man, I just, like I said, poke my head on here. I don't know when the next time is I'll be on here. If something important happens and I need to put it out, I will. But you guys have plenty of back channels that you can go to that I told you about that will give you that information. Crypto 901 has a pretty cool book. It's not official financial advice, but it really breaks down, it's an ebook, and it breaks down the basics of the crypto market and understanding how this stuff works. I unofficially recommend it. And like I said, it's not official financial advice, but definitely go and check it out if you can. If you want the link, just comment on this video and I'll make sure that he gets it. And I'll send the request to him, or I'll find a way to put you in contact with him so that you can buy the ebook. I've taken a look at it. I think it's pretty cool. And I think it'll help out a lot of folks who are coming in here or who are new on my channel and new to the space. And like I said, these the folks who know how to get in the Discord and all that, you guys, look, man, there is a lot of information as of late that, I mean, and there's always been information flowing in there, but if you're in there, take advantage of what's going on in there. Don't wait for me, all right, because I'm few, far, and in between, but it's going down in there. So on that note, stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed, and we'll get through this together. Signing out.